say hi to me. We go back a long way. She was 12, I was 30, but anyway, this woman helped me get an awful lot done. Anyway.
And we put a little side-by-side between Joe Biden's speech on the Senate floor and the reality of his own son, Hunter. I think you'll find it rather interesting.
If you have a piece of crack cocaine no bigger than this quarter that I'm holding in my hand, a law that says if you're caught with that, you go to jail for 5 years. Under our forfeiture statutes, the government can take everything you own. They must be taken off the street.
Help you. Liar, liar, pants on fire.
Analysis of the computer's hard drive has revealed something that does merit scrutiny. The analysis found millions of dollars flowing to Hunter Biden and his company. A big chunk of it came from Chinese partners, including a businessman now accused of fraud. The feds are currently investigating Hunter Biden's taxes. Here's NBC's Hallie Jackson.
With federal prosecutors poring over Hunter Biden's finances, investigating whether he violated federal tax law, a representative for the president's son tells NBC News his IRS bill totaling about $2 million has been paid off. Two people familiar with the matter say the money was arranged by one of the younger Biden's new attorneys, Hollywood lawyer Kevin Morris, best known for brokering a deal for the South Park TV show.
Does paying that tax bill wash away any liability that Hunter Biden may have now?
Paying the tax bill, if in fact that's what he did, doesn't undo the crime. It would be like returning money to a bank that you robbed. You still robbed the bank.
The president's son and his company brought in about $11 million between 2013 and 2018, working as an attorney, a board member to a Ukrainian gas company accused of bribing a prosecutor, and for a joint venture involving a Chinese businessman now accused of fraud, according to an NBC News analysis of a copy of Biden's hard drive and iCloud account obtained by NBC from a representative for Rudy Giuliani, as well as documents released by a Senate committee. During the campaign, then-candidate Biden denied his son profited off a China connection.
My son has not made money in terms of this thing about, what are you talking about, China.
The records show Hunter Biden's company received nearly $5 million in consulting contracts from that joint venture funded by a Chinese energy company. A snapshot of Hunter Biden's spending shows that for about 5 months in late 2017 and early 2018, he spent more than $200,000 a month on things like luxury hotel rooms, cash withdrawals, dental work, and payments on a Porsche, according to documents on the hard drive, a time period in which Hunter Biden has acknowledged struggling with drug addiction. His laptop itself, a subject of controversy after documents recovered from it were brought to light by the Biden's political opponents. And with the chain of custody in question, in 2020, some experts suggested the laptop's contents bore hallmarks of a Russian disinformation campaign. Since then, several news organizations have authenticated many emails from the laptop. The president has defended his son.
Are you confident your son did nothing wrong?
I'm confident.
And Hunter Biden has denied any illegal business dealings.
I'm cooperating completely. And I am absolutely certain, 100% certain, that at the end of the investigation, that I will be cleared of any wrongdoing.
I seek unanimous consent to enter into the record of this committee the contents of Hunter Biden's laptop, which I am in possession of.
I'm not...
There's no objection to that.
So I can't say no objection.
I've never had...
I will object pending further investigation.
What's the basis of that objection?
It's a unanimous consent request, and I object pending...
I have a subsequent question. Mr. Chairman, I seek unanimous consent to enter into the record the receipt...
It may very well be...
From the Mac shop.
It may very well be entered into the record after we look at it further.
Very well, Mr. Chairman, I have a subsequent unanimous consent.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Mr. Chairman, I seek unanimous consent to enter into the record the receipt from the Department of
Mr.
Justice...
Chairman, this is...
Rigid system is out of order. You want the truth?
You want the truth? You can't handle the truth!
Showing at least 14 of Hunter Biden's business associates did indeed meet with then Vice President Biden, and they ranged from Mexican billionaires, former Colombian presidents, former Kazakh prime ministers, to Ukrainian energy executives and Russian oligarchs. Yet President Biden consistently denies any knowledge of it.
I have never discussed with my son or my brother or anyone else anything having to do with their businesses, period. I've never discussed my business or their business, my sons or daughters, and I've never discussed them. I've never spoken to my son about his overseas business. I don't discuss business with my son. And because I don't discuss things with my son or my family, because I don't want to have any knowledge of any, I don't want to be accused of, well, you talk with your son or you talk with your whomever.
Do you stand by your statement that you did not discuss any of your son's overseas business?
Yes, I stand by that statement.
Well, it was a lie that was advanced in the 2019 and 2020 primary and general election. Everybody knew then there were photographs of these oligarchs and lobbyists with Joe Biden. There was Tony Bobulinski's testimony. There was the laptop. There was the opulent lifestyle that was otherwise inexplicable of Joe Biden himself. That asset, Joe Biden, is a liability. And he's so low in the polls that they're going to blame him for their own progressive message failing to attract voters. So all of a sudden, out of this administrative state and the FBI, the DOJ, maybe even the White House, people are starting to leak. We hear this word whistleblower, and they're saying, you know what? He met 13, 14 times. And my God, the laptop is here, and we're getting elements out of the laptop. And so when he's expendable, then the government reacts.
I'm Pam Bondi. You can't help but be proud to call this country home. But for Joe Biden, it's been the land of opportunism, not opportunity. As a career prosecutor and former Attorney General of Florida, I fought corruption, and I know what it looks like, whether it's done by people wearing pinstripe suits or orange jumpsuits. We all know about Joe's son, Hunter Biden. A corrupt Ukrainian oligarch put Hunter on the board of his gas company, even though he had no experience in Ukraine or in the energy sector. None. Yet he was paid millions to do nothing. He only had one qualification that mattered. He was the son of the man in charge of distributing U.S. aid to Ukraine. And recently reported information revealed that a few months after Hunter Biden joined that corrupt company's board, the Obama-Biden State Department began doing business with them, even when it remained under investigation for corruption. And it gets worse. That very same company was being investigated by a Ukrainian prosecutor. Joe Biden, the Vice President of the United States, threatened to withhold aid to Ukraine unless that same prosecutor was fired. And then he was fired.
So I got Ukraine. And I remember going over convincing our team, or others too, convincing us that we should be providing for loan guarantees. And I went over for, I guess, the 12th, 13th time to Kyiv, and I was supposed to announce that there was another $1 billion loan guarantee. And I had gotten a commitment from Poroshenko and from Yatsenyuk that they would take action against the state prosecutor, and they didn't. So they said they were walking out to press conference. I said, no, I said, we're not going to give you the $1 billion. They said, you have no authority. You're not the president. The president said. I said, call him. I said, I'm telling you, you're not getting the $1 billion. I said, you're not getting the $1 billion. I'm going to be leaving here. And I think it was, 6 hours? I said, I'm leaving in 6 hours. If the prosecutor's not fired, you're not getting the money. Well, son of a bitch. Got fired.
Hunter only resigned from that board just before his dad announced his campaign for president. Now let's talk about China. Fact. Joe Biden flew to China on Air Force Two with Hunter along for the ride. They said he was just there as a family member, but we know that's untrue. In Beijing, Hunter didn't just go sightseeing. He had meetings with his Chinese bank partners. Hunter even arranged for his dad to meet with one of the partners. 10 days later, those Chinese communist bankers approved millions to go to Hunter's firm. And those bankers work for the Chinese Communist Party, which oppresses their people, cheated American workers for decades, and covered up a deadly virus. To this day, Hunter controls a 10% stake in that firm. And Joe Biden's done more than look the other way on China. He said, "The Chinese aren't our competition. Come on, man, they're not bad folks." Come on, Joe. Talk to the folks in Middle America who lost countless jobs to China while your son was getting rich with them. But there's more. Fact. There have been numerous press reports that have shown other close Biden family members benefited from Joe's 47-year political career. Joe Biden was point person on Iraq. The president of a construction firm met with Biden's team in the White House, and then who did they hire to build thousands of houses in Iraq? Joe Biden's close family member, who, you guessed it, had no experience in the industry and no experience in Iraq. A company official bragged that it helps to have a family member, the vice president, as partner. The family member put it more bluntly by saying, "There's a line of 747s filled with cash ready to invest." Now let's follow the money down south. Again, as reported in the press, yet another close family member of Joe's set his sights on Costa Rica and Jamaica, where millions of dollars flowed from the Obama-Biden administration in taxpayer-backed loans to projects linked to, yes, that same family member. These aren't isolated incidents. It is a deliberate pattern of conduct. And that's just what he did as vice president. Imagine what he'd do as president. How many American families would be allowed to get away with this? Why should there be one standard for the elite political class and another set of rules for the rest of us? Democrats have been lecturing America about integrity for 4 years, while their nominee has been writing the textbook on abuse of power for 40 years. Joe says he'll build back better. Yeah, build the Bidens back better.
Now, let's go to the US, where Bill Maher is with actor and filmmaker Rob Reiner.
Question is, was it appropriate to bury the Hunter Biden?
You're talking about the press doing that?
He's saying that's what they did, and that is what they did. They buried the Hunter Biden story before the election because they were like, we can't risk having the election thrown to Trump. We'll tell them after the election.
And we know for a fact that that's what they did?
Of course. You don't
but
follow
I'm
this.
saying you know for a fact that that's what they did. I don't know what they did.
I know, because you only watch MSNBC.
No, that's not true.
The whole freaking system is out of order. You want the truth? You want the truth? You can't handle the truth!
Well, what do you say to those families who say, listen, we can't afford to pay $4.85 a gallon for months, if not years. This is just not sustainable.
This is about the future of the liberal world order, and we have to stand firm.
I can help you. Liar, liar, pants on fire.
From Oklahoma is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Before I yield time to my next speaker, I want to yield myself such time as I may consume, just to quickly respond to my friend's comment about the energy industry. I'm from an energy district. I'm from an energy state. My constituents and their forebears have produced more energy than they have consumed for over 100 years, and they've shared it all over the world, but particularly across this country. Thank God for them. Because quite frankly, what Americans would be paying at the pump now would be astronomical if it were not for them. And since 2005, American oil and gas production, or oil production, has doubled. And that's due to their ingenuity. And frankly, we pay almost the lowest energy prices in the world. And I'm sorry to put all these energy increases off on Vladimir Putin. He's certainly responsible for those this week. But the reality is, for the entire Biden presidency, energy prices have been going up. And that's because the president, on his very first day, effectively declared war on the fossil fuel industry. You know, he canceled the Keystone Pipeline. He changed the leasing and drilling rules on federal land. The hostility has been simply overwhelming. And now, where does that put us? The United States is going to Iran to ask them to increase energy crisis, the largest sponsor of state terrorism. We're spending, friends, down, representatives to Venezuela. My God, why don't we just call people in Houston and Oklahoma City and Cheyenne? We've got lots of places that know how to produce energy and have been doing it cheaply, efficiently, fairly, and cleanly for decades. So the reality is, let's not attack them. They're our salvation in a time of trial, and they're our national security in moving forward. So I just think, I feel very strongly about that.
This resolution of inquiry requires President Biden to hand over documents in his possession that are related to the Biden family's international business schemes and influence peddling. Oversight Republicans' ongoing investigation has revealed the Biden family has peddled excess to the highest levels of government to enrich themselves, and unfortunately, often to the detriment of U.S. interests. By passing this resolution of inquiry, we will provide the American people with much-needed transparency to understand the Biden family's businesses. It is time for President Biden to answer some questions about his participation in his family's business schemes with some of our most significant adversaries for years, including the Chinese Communist Party. For far too long, James and Hunter Biden have faced no accountability for their deal-making with shady and CCP-connected associates. Now, there's a lot of talk about Hunter Biden. It's often easier to just ignore the story than to consider what has been revealed since Joe Biden told the American people he never even discussed his son's business dealings with him. We know Hunter's closest business partner, and who was later appointed by the Obama-Biden administration White House to a position in the federal government, visited the White House and other official locations while Joe Biden was vice president. The same person, Eric Sherwin, became president of Hunter's company, Rosemont Seneca, and wrote checks to Hunter Biden from the vice president's account because the vice president owed Hunter money. We know that meetings included sit-downs with then Vice President Biden in the West Wing with foreign billionaires with whom his son was arranging business. We know that the Biden family has done deals with China worth millions of dollars. Those deals were arranged by individuals with direct ties to Chinese intelligence. Hunter Biden himself called his client, quote, the spy chief of China, unquote. We know that then U.S. Deputy Chief of Mission to Ukraine, George Kent, emailed State Department officials in 2016 to alert Washington that Hunter Biden's business dealings were undercutting the United States anti-corruption mission in Ukraine. We know James and Hunter Biden told their business associates that if they did business with them from 2017 to 2020, they would reap the rewards and profits under a Biden administration, even before Joe Biden announced he would run for president. And of course, we know President Biden has told the American people repeatedly that he does not know anything about Hunter's business dealings. He even said that again in the 60 Minutes interview this week. We need to know if this pay-to-play between Hunter and the now current president and foreign entities has continued. For years, the U.S. government has warned that high-end art sales have been the perfect vehicle to launder money or pay indirectly for access to favor. To his credit, Hunter seems to be reading the memos. And when Joe Biden became president, overnight, Hunter Biden became one of the highest paid artists in America, listing works of art for $75,000 to even $500,000. We know he sold at least 5 paintings for $75,000 apiece. Today, we still don't know who bought Hunter's art. The Democrat Party, the Biden administration, big tech, the swamp, even Hollywood and others have done everything in their power to run cover for the Biden family. Twitter removed the Hunter Biden laptop story just weeks before the 2020 election. The FBI put Mark Zuckerberg at Facebook on notice. With a wink and a nod, the FBI told the tech giant to be on the lookout for Russian disinformation. Then the platform suppressed the laptop story. Meanwhile, the Treasury Department, shortly after Joe Biden took office and Republicans began looking deeper into Hunter Biden's activities, changed its policies regarding suspicious activity reports, or SARS. The Biden administration changed the rules to severely restrict Congress to access to suspicious activity reports with no explanation. And remember, Maxine Waters filed legislation that passed the House later to change that back to where Congress could have access to SARS. I supported that. So I don't support many of Maxine Waters' bills, but I supported that bill. As I've stated before, Hunter Biden and other Biden family members have racked up at least 150 suspicious activity reports for their shady foreign business dealing. That number of SARS is simply unheard of in the banking world, and I was a director of a bank for over a decade. We must have access to this information to see if Joe Biden has benefited from his family's dealings with foreign adversaries. If the Democrats vote against this resolution, then they are continuing in their coordinated effort to shield a potentially compromised president from necessary congressional oversight. They, of course, have been doing this for 2 years. Since a cabinet-level Biden administration official has not testified before the full committee, this entire Congress, 0 cabinet officials in the Biden administration have testified before this committee for 2 years. We must shed light on the Biden family's international business schemes to determine if they're a national security threat. I look forward to us joining together to conduct oversight, ensure our national security, and strive for transparency in the government for the American people. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Hey, pals, Dad, it's 8:15 on Wednesday night. If you get a chance, give me a call. Nothing urgent. Just want to talk to you. I thought the article, at least the thing online, it's going to be printed tomorrow in the Times, was good. I think it's clear. And anyway, if you get a chance, give me a call. I love you.
Since Joe Biden took office, America seems to be bouncing from one crisis to the next. You got the COVID-19 pandemic, massive inflation, Afghanistan, Russia invades Ukraine, the energy crisis. Yet, all along the way, it's the little guys, us, who seem to get screwed the most. You know, the have-nots in society. Why are we always left holding the bag? After all, the connected haves do all the damage. The haves are the power broker elites who seem to make the rules the rest of us are forced to live under. This kind of got me thinking. That sounds an awful lot like an oligarchy, doesn't it? Let's check the definition of an oligarchy. According to Merriam-Webster, an oligarchy is, quote, a government in which a small group exercises control, especially for corrupt and selfish purposes. Are we being governed by a small group of powerful elites who make special rules for themselves, you know, the haves, while making a separate set of rules for everyone else, you know, us, the have-nots? So just this week, the president of BlackRock, no doubt a have, was quoted in Bloomberg talking about the have-nots, us, saying, quote, for the first time, this generation is going to go into a store and not be able to get what they want. And we have a very entitled generation that has never had a sacrifice. Really? I want to ask some of those Iraq vets who came home without limbs about that. Here's more evidence. Just a few weeks ago, New York City lifted the vaccine mandate for all performers, giving unvaccinated professional athletes the green light to play home games again. But what if you're a dirt under the fingernails city worker, a heroic firefighter or police officer who's been forced out of a job because of the mandate? Well, clearly, you're a have-not.
At this time, we are not reviewing if we're going to bring back those. A large number they were hired with the understanding they had to be vaccinated. We're going to focus on the science. We're going to do what's right, and we're going to make sure we're healthy. And being healthy is not only physically healthy, it's economically healthy. You may consider this a double standard. I consider the analysis that I made, and I'm comfortable with my decision.
You see, folks, people like Mayor Adams and these pro athletes, you know, they're all the haves. Yet the police officers making $55,000, $60,000 a year who are now unemployed, they're clearly, you know, the have-nots. And a new report shows that teachers' unions work closely with the CDC to determine when they thought it was going to be safe for kids to go back to school. They've never been involved to this degree in this decision in the past. Sounds like a kind of a group of connected haves to me. If you're one of the haves, like Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot, she's reportedly protected by a special security squad of dozens of police officers. Then there's all the haves in Congress, led, by the way, by the disgraceful Nancy Pelosi. So what are the haves on Capitol Hill actually accomplishing for us, the have-nots? Remember their vote to print trillions of stimulus dollars? Well, check out this headline. This is how much it helped us. We all now face an inflation tax because they printed a boatload of monopoly money of $5,200 a year. While their actions cost you more, these powerful elites like Hunter Biden, they're doing A-OK, making millions on their corruption.
This isn't Russian disinformation. These are hard facts backed up by bank records. So a company that was effectively an arm of the Chinese government transferred $1 million in November 2017 to a company that Hunter Biden is managing and is invested in.
The have-nots in Germany, their citizens right now, are bracing for, electricity blackouts due to natural gas rationing because the haves in Germany a while ago decided to stay dependent on Russian energy. And it isn't like we weren't warned about this either. This problem was coming. Everybody knew. Check out this report from CBS 4 years ago.
Germany is totally controlled by Russia.
President Trump confirmed Europe's worst pre-summit fears by using the NATO stage to criticize allies, blasting Germany over a natural gas pipeline deal with Russia.
It's very sad when Germany makes a massive oil and gas deal with Russia, where you're supposed to be guarding against Russia, and Germany goes out and pays billions and billions of dollars a year to Russia.
German officials deny that the controversial Nord Stream 2 pipeline will allow Russia to exert undue influence over their country.
This was just a little bit ago at the World Government Summit.
The title of this session, are we ready for a new world order?
You ready? I'm not. This new world order really sounds like crap to me. It sounds like it really sucks.
Liar, liar, pants on fire.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. If we defeat the previous question, I will offer an amendment to the rule allowing for the immediate consideration of H.R. 8749 to repeal the Methane Emissions and Waste Reduction Incentive Program for petroleum and natural gas systems. I ask unanimous consent to insert the text of my amendment in the record along with the extraneous materials immediately prior to the vote on the previous question.
Without objection.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Just last week, a constituent called my office with concerns about the President's energy policy. Joshua hauls gas for a living and said it is the best job he has ever had, but he worries that President Biden wants to take that away. He asked for my support and expressed his appreciation for anything that I can do to protect the industry. H.R. 8749 is a key piece of that puzzle. It supports American energy independence and all those who rely on it by protecting the Permian Basin and the largest secure supply of crude oil in the world. If the Biden administration gets their way on this issue, production will be slowed in that region, jobs will be lost, and gas prices will continue to rise. Madam Speaker, this presidential administration is actively working against the oil and gas industry. They have increased natural gas production taxes, prevented energy development in Alaska, and made permitting more difficult. They are prioritizing supplemental energy technologies like wind and solar, but the U.S. Energy Information Administration's annual energy outlook projected that petroleum and natural gas will be the most used fuels in the U.S. through 2050. We cannot abandon these reliable and essential sources of energy.
Can help you. Liar, liar, pants on fire.
So what he really wanted to do was paint, it turned out, and now he is. Hunter Biden is selling his paintings, and they're so good, they're so unbelievable, that people are paying up to $500,000 to buy just one. There are private galleries in New York and LA. According to the Washington Post, the White House is helping him. They're his art dealer now. They helped Hunter Biden reach a deal to hide the identities of the people who bought those paintings. That doesn't sound corrupt or anything. Miranda Devine has reported extensively on the Biden family's business dealings. She's a columnist at the Washington Post. We're happy to have her now. So the White House is helping the first son keep his $500,000 art transaction secret? That just seems like flagrant corruption to me.
Hi, Tucker. I just wanted to say first that, express solidarity for you with these NSA spying problems. I think every journalist in the country should be up in arms. It's absolutely outrageous. It's Hunter Biden's little art scam that the White House is trying to cover up for him. It's crazy that they think that somehow making the transactions less transparent, keeping secret the buyers of Hunter Biden's paintings and their countries of origin, somehow that is going to solve the problem that someone might be buying access to the White House by spending $500,000 on one of his paintings. It's crazy, but at least, the good thing is that the White House is talking about ethics now. It's only been 9 months since the New York Post broke the story about Hunter Biden's laptops and all the ethical, at least, infringements that are apparent there and that we've been reporting on. But it sort of beggars belief that the White House thinks that they can just smoothly go along and, in effect, outsource their ethics policy to some Manhattan art dealer mate of Hunter's, who is supposed to somehow vet these buyers. Like somehow he knows whether the Chinese guy is a member of the high-ranking member of the Chinese Communist Party, or the Russian is associated with the former corrupt mayor of Moscow, or some Ukrainian energy corrupt oligarch. How does he know? He's not a foreign policy expert or an intelligence operative. So that's nuts in itself. But the other thing that's mad is that they have, Hunter and his mate have decided that they're going to set the prices of these paintings. And they've put them, as we said, at $500,000, which is outrageous for a first-time painter. As beautiful as Hunter's art is, there was a Picasso that was sold this week. It was uncovered in a closet in Maine where it had been sitting for 30 years. That went for $150,000, and Hunter wants 3 times that. So don't think it works.
I mean, there's nothing sleazier than the international art market. I mean, it's a massive tax dodge. I mean, I think you get a more straightforward deal with the drug cartels. At least they know who they are. It's like the whole thing it's unbelievable.
A new report raising more questions about President Biden's involvement with his son Hunter and his business dealings. A source and emails from Hunter's abandoned laptop confirmed that he met with his then vice president father in 2015 and 2016, immediately after business meetings with a Romanian tycoon accused of corruption. John Levine's the columnist for the New York Post, back with us today. And John, good morning to you. The tycoon is Gabriel Papadopoulos, I do believe. What's his story?
Your guess is as good as mine on that name.
What would he be doing with Hunter Biden, John?
So just for context on Gabriel Papadopoulos, he was a Romanian real estate tycoon. He had made hundreds of millions of dollars in Romania, and he was convicted of bribery, and he was sentenced to 7 years in prison. And he was looking to have that conviction overturned. And in that effort, he enlisted Hunter Biden and a number of his business partners to sort of see what they could do on that front. It appears that Hunter pulled out all the stops because, what's really new here is that if you look at the calendar, on at least 3 different occasions when Hunter Biden was conducting business on behalf of this Romanian, immediately after he was meeting with his father. And you can see this all in the calendar. So you've got situations where he's in Romania, he's meeting with the U.S. ambassador to Romania at the time to talk about the case, and then he comes back from Romania. 2 days later in the calendar, it says breakfast with Dad at the Naval Observatory, the Vice President's residence.
Let me get to that right now, because this is strange to me. The former FBI director, Louis Freeh, was working for the tycoon. He was hired by him. So here's one of the emails that you came up with. Does this still work for you? And that's Hunter Biden's office manager, Jim Pugh, I think, titled 12 p.m. call with Louis Freeh. I'm going to yoga at 5:15 if you're done with your dad in time. Now, why is that so significant? Why is that important, John?
So Louis Freeh was also part of a former FBI director, was also part of this effort to get the conviction against Popoviciu overturned. And there's really no reason, for Hunter and Louis Freeh to be having a call, at that time, other than for Popoviciu. And then, as you can see from that email, it confirms what you can see in the calendar, that there was a meeting with Joe Biden that same day, just 2 hours, in fact, afterwards.
Okay, so here is Peter Doocy asking the golden question from 2019.
How many times have you ever spoken to your son about his overseas business dealings?
I've never spoken to my son about his overseas business dealings.
You've got that on camera now, John. That was 3 years ago. And your whole piece today suggests that he met with his dad multiple times, surrounding the same time that he was doing work with this tycoon for a name that we can't pronounce. John, is it possible that all of this could be explained away?
It's increasingly unlikely that that's the case. And, as you said, it really is the golden question. And it's been reiterated several times by White House press secretaries, both Jen Psaki and now Karine Jean-Pierre, that there was no contact between Joe Biden with his son with respect to overseas business dealings. So now the question is not, was there contact, was there discussion of the business dealings, but how extensive was it? And I think that's the real next question we need to kind of begin to address.
This is gibberish. Listen to this.
Late Friday, the Department of Homeland Security released the latest numbers on border interactions with Border Patrol. They show that over the course of fiscal year 2022, 2.4 million encounters happened on the southern border. That's the most ever on record. Republicans have their arguments about that. What's the White House's explanation as to what happened and why?
So I've said this before at this podium in the briefing room. What we're seeing, this new migration challenge, is driven by people who are fleeing falling regimes.
Nobody asked you what's driving it.
Liar, liar, pants on fire.
On Hunter Biden, learn a little more about him. I found this very extensive profile in the New Yorker. And here's what it says. Hunter said that at that point, he had not slept for several days. Driving east on Interstate 10 just beyond Palm Springs, he lost control of his car, which jumped the median and skidded to a stop on the shoulder of the westbound side. He called Hertz, which came to collect the damaged car and gave him a second rental. The Hertz rental officer told me he found a crack pipe in the car and on one of the consoles a line of white powder residue. Beau Biden's Attorney General badge was on the dashboard. Hertz called the Prescott Police Department and officers filed a narcotics offense report listing items seized in the car, including a plastic bag containing white powdery substance, a Secret Service business card, credit cards, and Hunter Biden's driver's license. That is what we would call evidence. And I don't want to make light of anybody's substance abuse issues. I know the president's working real hard to solve those throughout the country, but it's a little hard to believe that Burisma hired Hunter Biden to resolve their international disputes when he could not resolve his own dispute with Hertz rental car over leaving cocaine and a crack pipe in the car.
Mr. Chairman, I rise in opposition to this amendment, and I would say that the pot calling the kettle black is not something that we should do. I don't know what members, if any, have had any problems with substance abuse, been busted in DUI. I don't know. But if I did, I wouldn't raise it against anyone on this committee.
A reporter asked him, hey, how come nobody wants you around on the campaign trail? Watch how pissed off he gets. Oh, people want me around. 16 people have asked. 16? Carl Rowe put up a good point on Fox last night. There's about 600 candidates running across the country for various positions, and 15 of them want you. You're the president of the United States, and you're proud of that? Here, watch this fragile, shallow little man get so insulted when he finds out nobody wants him around. Check this out.
Sir, why don't more candidates want to be seen in public with you like Mr. Fetterman?
Wear a suit. Where did you buy it at?
What are you talking about? Tim Ryan in Ohio said he doesn't want you there. Warnock said wouldn't say. Do you think they're making a mistake?
No, there are 16 there I've already gone in for yet, and a lot more have asked. Another 20 or so. So I'm going to be going there.
This shallow, pathetic little man. You see how insulted he is that nobody wants him around? Listen, just quickly, folks, obviously, you know, this is serious stuff. I mean, the guy has his finger on the nuclear codes, could start a nuclear war. And I've told you I'm extremely concerned about a black swan event, an event that has an extremely low probability of happening, you know, less than 1%. But the consequences of the event are devastating, i.e., like the chances of a plane crash are low, but we should really take it seriously because if it happens, you're dead. Well, black swan events, thank you to Corey, a friend of ours of the show who emails stories sometimes. He said, Dan, you keep talking about black swan events that could lead to World War III and nuclear war. He goes, look at this one. And he's right. This is from just yesterday. United Kingdom says a Russian aircraft fired a missile near a British spy plane over the Black Sea. But don't worry, Joe. They say it's just an accident and not a deliberate escalation. Oh, okay.
Man.
Thank God. Just an accident, fellas. No worries.
That's
right?
wow.
Thank God. I mean, seriously, thank God that folks, you understand, like every one of these accidents increases the probability that much more of a black swan catastrophic international nuclear war, which wipes out the earth. Maybe it's something we should be worried about with this numbnuts in the White House. Just an idea.
The whole freaking system is out of order. You want the truth? You want the truth? You can't handle the truth.
Michael, they're not hiding this either. I mean, Schwab wrote a book called The Great Reset. You know, I always get a kick out of these fact checkers. You know, they're really opinion checkers. The book's called The Great Reset. I mean, that's not figurative. They're not hiding it. I mean, these guys are openly advertising what their goals are.
In fact, it's called COVID-19, The Great Reset. And in the book, Schwab and Terry Malaret, his co-author, they say point blank that COVID represents a great opportunity. They say this like 17 times, that it's an opportunity that must be seized to bring about the great reset of capitalism. And this is the capitalism that they have in mind. It's not capitalism at all. This is either corporate socialism, or you can call it economic fascism. I also call it capitalism with Chinese characteristics, as a play on the socialism with Chinese characteristics of the Chinese Communist Party's nomenclature. So this is effectively a kind of whole system, and they have, if you look at all the parts and you read the text and read, you don't even have to read between the lines. All you have to do is reasonably project what they have in mind and what it will accomplish. And this is really what it comes down to. This kind of a feudalistic, neo-socialist, economic fascist economic system under which people are under total surveillance and control. And I have to say, without sounding like a loon, there's also population control issues involved. These people have been Malthusians from the outset. That is, they are very much intent on controlling population. It goes back to their history. The WEF and all their partners have been involved with population ethics, as they would call it, where it really is about controlling the human population.
Yeah, that doesn't. No, that's not. That's like that's again. No, that's tautological. They openly do it. I mean, I get really excited talking about this topic because I'm fascinated by how people fell in this Paul Ehrlich Malthusian trap, as if human beings are some net negative, but cattle on a farm are a net positive. It's just the most bizarre idea that we have an overpopulation problem. I mean, you do even the simple math, and then you have the Chinese Communist Party with their one-child policy, which turned into a demographic disaster. I mean, that's not a loon at all. You're speaking the truth on this. Let's tie this into others, though. It's not just the Klaus Schwab's, WHO, WEF types, these globalists. It's also the Bill Gates types and others that seem to have fallen in love with this idea. And if you would, Michael, I'd like you to address the fraudulent nature of this whole thing with the kleptocrats out there, because you have these American business executives right now that have gone woke, they say, and they'll sit there and they'll cancel a guy like you on Twitter for stating an obvious fact about population control, which is happening. But then they'll go over to China and kiss the butt of I was reading this piece in the journal. Sorry, I'm being long-winded here. There was this piece in the journal about a conference going on, and the Chinese security chief, one of them is going to be over there, primarily responsible for the imprisonment of the Uyghurs. And these tech executives are speaking at this conference with this guy while canceling people like you and me for questioning the science behind vaccines or masks. It's just so fraudulent and outrageous.
It's outrageous, but I think it can be looked at this way: birds of a feather stick together. These people actually are modeling the system after China. I mean, this goes back to Maurice Strong, the first director of UNEP, or UN Environmental Program, and he said basically China is the model for this. So they've been looking at China as the model to introduce to the West for some time. China, with its it has this for-profit element, but those companies are effectively controlled to an extent by the state and vice versa. So really, China has always been what they've had in mind. And they've had this population ethics, so-called, in place. The UN has recommended, forced sterilizations and forced abortions going back to the 70s. So population is very much on the agenda, and they also have this big desideratum to reduce the consumption of the Western world. They see Westerners, particularly in the United States, as a scourge on the planet, and they must get our consumption reduced. So in order to do it, they call for transfers of wealth from the West to the developing world. And this is, in fact, a way of bribing the developing world not to develop while robbing the West of its resources.
While the storm clouds gather far across the sea, let us swear allegiance to a land that's free. Let us all be grateful for a land so fair, as we raise our voices in a solemn prayer. God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her, guide her through the night with a light from above. From the mountains to the prairies, to the oceans white with foam.